What's going on, guys? My name is Triforce Addiction. Welcome back to another COD mobile video. So today, this video is going to be a little bit different. That's something I should first off just say. I just want to kind of like get this video a little bit faster than normal. So yes, the patch notes for Season 6 have officially come out, which come with a lot of changes that, I mean, I did have to make some calculations with, like on the calculator for multipliers and everything. But we did get a lot of things that we wanted, as well as a lot of things that are going to be kind of questionable for the next season. So yeah, the format of this video, at least for today, is going to just be a little bit different. So it's going to be a little bit more rough. But anyways, let's actually begin with the first set of changes. So we did get a hipfire nerf for the, I guess, for the VMP. This is something that I did point out in one of my VMP review videos, saying that the hipfire for this weapon is a little bit too on point, more so than a fully decked out PPSH. And this was something that I knew would kind of be an issue if people decide to make some sort of hipfire build along with it. So I'm kind of glad that they kind of nerfed this ahead of time. I know the VMP is still going to be pretty overpowered for the time being, but hey, the USS-9 also got a head multiplier reduction, which goes from 1.5x to 1.4x. So just in case you guys don't know what this means, basically it's going to be a little bit harder to, I guess, you know, get like two-shot headshots. So I did look this up in game, and apparently if you don't have that 32 round special mag for this gun, you're not going to be able to two-shot to the head anymore. So if you're using something like the 50 or the 40 round extended mag for this thing, yeah, you're basically shit out of luck. But good news is that for the 32 round AE mag, I think that's what's called. I think it's called the AE mag. But yeah, for that special magazine, they also reduced the range for it inadvertently. Well, I mean, that's kind of what they were aiming for. So usually in the first two ranges, which was actually pretty far for the USS-9, which is something that people are complaining about for months, it was able to two-shot from basically across the map, and now it's not going to be able to do that. It's only going to be reduced down to the first range, which is about a little over 10 meters if you decide to deck it out with full, you know, range attachments and everything. So yes, the two-shot potential is a lot more reduced because of this change. So now we also have the LW3 Tundra, which is the 28.2 Tiger Team barrel. This is the one I believe that gives you a faster fire rate. So the penalty went down from -1 in your magazine to -2. So basically, instead of having 6 bullets, you're now going to have 5. So that's actually a pretty good change for the LW3 Tundra, in my personal opinion. As for the AS Val, it did just get kind of like a small increase to range. I know it's not really much. The AS Val isn't really used as often. I mean, I use it all the time, but the general public probably would not favor this weapon as much. But they also made a change to one of the foregrips called the Piranha foregrip. I don't think I've ever heard this attachment before, but basically they added a -4% horizontal recoil reduction buff. So basically this thing's going to be a little bit more stable, but again, like I don't really think this weapon has to deal with that much horizontal recoil unless you just continuously fire it nonstop. But also the HDR got a leg multiplier increase. This is one of those that I didn't search up, but if anything, I'm not sure if this actually increases the one-shot kill potential in the further ranges, because I know in the first range you could basically one-shot kill anywhere, but this might actually help it one-shot basically anywhere in the body from any range, or at least in the second range. I don't know how many ranges this gun has. I barely use it. But yeah, for the Kilo 141, this one's actually pretty interesting. So they increased the lower arm multipliers from 1 times to 1.1 times. So basically it's going to be a much more consistent 4-shot weapon. But also they did some weird thing with the YKM integrated suppressor light. They added a 2% movement speed buff as well as a 12% ADS movement speed buff. So this is very interesting, mainly because the Kilo is not really known for, you know, being used as kind of like a hit of a, you know, a lighter build type of style. Most people would probably use a marksman barrel, and I think before the old builds used to be something like that, along with like a ranger foregrip, just a lot of stuff that would slow the weapon down. But from what it seems, they're trying to entice players into actually using like lighter attachment to try and make this kind of more of a lighter type of assault rifle. And this is actually something I do want to experiment later on when this update does come out, because yeah, I'm not really too fond of using the Kilo in like a faster fashion, but you know, with changes like this might actually help. So now we actually move on to another change. So this one is going to be a bit questionable. This is the big one that I was actually kind of hinting at. So the KN-44 got an increased lower arm multiplier from 1.1 times to 1.15 times. So at least eyeballing it at first, I'm sure most of you guys would probably look at this and think, well, maybe there's no big deal to this. But there actually is, because I did calculate the amount of damage that it is going to do now on the lower arm. And it's basically the same, or at least as good as the chest multiplier. And as you guys know, the KN-44 does have a 3-shot potential if you do manage to hit a few shots to the chest or even the head. So basically, this is going to increase the damage just enough for it to increase the 3-shot potential. So not only you have to shoot in the chest, you could also shoot in the lower arm as well and still score a 3-shot kill. And knowing that the KN-44 has a lot of initial range, and even if you put like a, I don't know, a monolithic suppressor, you're going to get about maybe 30 meters or more of that initial range. So this thing's going to be able to 3-shot from a pretty far distance a lot more easily now. And I'm actually surprised that a lot of people on Twitter haven't actually like pointed this out yet. But when I saw this, I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be crazy. But yeah, anyways, we had to move on to the OWC Ranger, not Rangel, but yeah, the OWC Ranger, they increased the horizontal recoil reduction buff from 6% to 12%. So again, not really something that I don't really think anyone's really going to care about this attachment. But yeah, anyways, the ZRG 20mm got reduced ADS time from 480 milliseconds to 460, so it's going to be a little bit faster. The HBR, this one's also pretty interesting change. So the ADS BSA improved from 21 to 18. So yes, the BSA is a little bit, what makes the gun basically more accurate when you ADS. And also the head multiplier got increased from 1.3 times to 1.4 times. So basically this weapon is going to pack more of a punch to the head, but it doesn't make too much of a difference after the first range. It's still going to 3-shot within that first range, but I think 4-shot in the second range. So it's not really going to make too much of a difference. But the chest multiplier is probably the most interesting change, but not because now it actually gives the HBR a 3-shot capability, much like the KN-44. So now if you do hit some shots to the chest, you are going to be able to score a 3-shot kill. So basically, the way I see it is that the HBR is kind of like taking the place of the KN-44, and the KN-44 is moving up to be a completely different beast in and of itself. So that's the way I see it. That's how I'm rationalizing it. But anyways, the Razorback, the ADS BSA improved from 2410 to 2010. So basically, again, it's making this weapon a lot more accurate, and this might actually have a lot of players using it now. I know it hasn't really been used for about a year or two. Like basically ever since that Razorback got nerfed, because they were kind of like starting to fear that it was going to become too overpowered. But now I don't really think this is going to be too much of an issue. And I think the rapid fire perk actually does increase BSA, or decrease the BSA. So basically you're going to be missing a lot more, but this might actually alleviate this issue a little bit. So for the Right-Tech AMR, the mag size increased from 5 to 6. So basically the base amount for your magazine is now going to be a little bit higher, as well as for the ADS time reduced from 500 milliseconds to 460 milliseconds. So they're basically kind of speeding up a lot of the slower not assault rifles, but they're basically increasing the speed of a lot of slower sniper rifles, having them catch up a little bit to have players be more motivated to use them a little bit more. But for the M4 LMG, this is for BR only. The damage profile increased from 32-23-19 to 32-26. So basically an infinite 26 damage no matter where you shoot. So this is something that I think a lot of players were actually happy with. I did see some actually positive feedback within Twitter. A lot of people were saying that this was a good change. But again, I've never really used the M4 LMG in BR, not even Alcatraz. So yeah, this might actually be a big change. If you guys could actually explain that to me in the comments section, that I would be more than happy to hear that. But yeah, so the RPD also got some slightly increased aim assist for BR. And for the Vargo S, so this is, I know a lot of people have been wanting this weapon to change too. So they increased the movement speed, they increased some speed for the attachments, just also increasing horizontal recoil reduction. You know, I don't think people are going to be using this. The no stock did get a 6% ADS movement speed buff, but I looked at the attachment stats, nothing really too crazy. But the biggest change has to go to the 60 round drums. So The 60 round drums, as you guys know, has not really been that. I don't really think it's something that's really appealing to anyone because of just the range penalty and just all the other downsides. But with this, being reduced down to 10%, and it's not really going to take away that much, this might actually be a pretty decent attachment to use over the 45 round drum. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see once this update does come out. So now let's move on to the S36. So the ADS BSA improved from 2010 to 18.6. And not only that, they also increased the headshot multiplier from 1.2 times to 1.3 times. I don't really think it does much for at least the first range because I think it already 3 shots. But in the second range, it might be able to 3-shot, but I'm not really that certain that it will. But they also increased the stomach multiplier from 1 times to 1.1 times. So in the second range, you're still going to be able to 4-shot. And to be honest, with the S36, I kind of consider it to just be a 4-shot weapon anyways. So this is going to increase the range significantly. And with the BSA improvement, holy shit, this thing's going to be a monster. So for the Bruin MK9, the lower arm multipliers increased from 1 times to 1.1 times. They also finally fixed a 3-year long issue with the Bruin. Well, actually, no, a 2-year long. It was on the 4th anniversary. But yeah, there was an issue with the Bruin that a lot of people were complaining out when it first came out that the ammo reserve was actually a lot lower for some reason. So instead of maybe starting off with 200 ammo reserve, it would start off with only an extra magazine. I don't know why it did that, but basically they're trying to just put it back to how every other weapon is. I don't know why it took them so long to fix that. But now we move on to all the other changes, such as, score streaks, just basically all the other shit. So yes, the gravity vortex gun got a reduced recharge speed, which honestly isn't really the issue that we really want fixed. I think the bigger issue is the fact that, when you're going against an entire team that has this, they're spamming 4 of them all at once, and it's becoming a huge issue, especially if you're playing hardpoint. And this also affects the casual modes as well. There's not many hardpoint matches where I don't face people like this. And yeah, I feel like they should have reduced the amount of portals that could be shot through this thing, because I think it's 4 is way too much. I think it should have just been 1 or 2. So for the TAC 5, they reduced the recharge speed. As for the wraps, they also increased the cost. Martyrdom, the detonation delay increased from 1 second to 1.25 seconds. Not much of a major change, but at least gives people a tiny bit more time to run away from it. For Flak Jacket, they also increased the explosive damage resistance from 35% to 45%, so basically this is going to counter Martyrdom a little harder. And for Demo Expert, they reduced the explosive damage buff from 40% to 30%, knowing that Martyrdom has been playing a huge part and making everyone's lives hell. So the Cryo Bomb can now be destroyed by explosive damage. So if you throw a grenade, or let's say you have a grenade launcher for whatever reason, you could use that to destroy it. But if anything, I would just recommend either shooting it or just using an EMP grenade. I think it would get disabled anyways. For Quick Strike, the damage increased from 35/70/105 to 35/140 210. So yeah, this looks like a pretty big change. I'm not really that sure. I mean, I don't use Quick Strike in VR, so let me know what you guys actually think about this change. But yeah. And so I think, yeah, that's it. That's all the changes that we have so far. They haven't really said anything. But, oh, actually, yeah, there is a correction right here. So apparently it's not the ADS time, but the fire interval buff from 500 milliseconds to 460 milliseconds. So basically, yeah, apparently this was a typo for the, where's the right tech? So apparently for the right tech, it's not actually getting an ADS reduction time. It's actually getting a fire interval reduction time. So basically you're going to be able to shoot this thing a tiny bit faster. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, those are basically all the changes. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like. Make sure to subscribe for some more COD Mobile content. I'll see you guys next time.